What is up, everyone? Welcome to round 5 of the Portland Monthly Premodern Paper Magic Afternoon March 2024 tournament. We've got a couple of brand new decks that have not yet been on camera this month, so I can't wait to dive into the lists. First up, we have David on his 5-color Tireless Flashback Brew. Now, I think this has been on camera before, but not for one of the Premodern tournaments. I think it was for one of the bragging rights one-off videos we've done in the past. But the basic premise behind this deck is that it's a banned good stuff list that has a combo kill potentially as early as turn 2. And that's with the card Tireless Tribe, which is a creature. Discard a card from your hand. Tireless Tribe gets +0/+4 till end of turn. And the card About Face, which is a 1-mana instant speed red spell for 1 red. Switch target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. So the idea being you play out a Tireless Tribe turn 1 and turn 2 swing in, discard the rest of your hand and hit for usually lethal damage. Other than that though, the list is a bit of a madness list with stuff like Wild Mongrel and Roar of the Worms and Deep Analysis and Quiet Speculation. And then it's also running a Living Wish sideboard as well for a little bit extra toolbox effect. Overall, a super cool list. It's done well in the past, and I'm excited to see it on camera for the first Premodern tournament. Next up, we have Mose on a bit more of a standard list, but still a bit of a brew. He is playing red-green Oath Terravore, but the red splash has been diminished by quite a bit, mostly focusing on green land destruction and Spheres of Resistance. The only red in the main is in fact 2 Pyroclasms, and the only red in the sideboard is the additional 2 Pyroclasms and some red elemental blasts. Overall, this has proven to be a very strong list in the past. The land destruction definitely keeps opponents off balance, and the amount of utility lands also just help this deck get across the finish line if opponents do have a way to deal with the 4 of Terravore. So those are the decks. Let's get into the games. And here we go. David is on the left and Mose is on the right. Both of these decks do have ways to get quick kills, but are very well equipped for a long, grindy match. And if you took a peek at the video runtime, you may know that's exactly what we're in store for. So it looks like David is going to be keeping a 7. Mose not quite happy with it. Gonna do a little pile shuffle, get things a little more randomized. This is round 5, so hopefully things have been randomized enough, but you never can be too sure. Also, maybe just counting out for the sideboard, because you know, pile shuffling doesn't randomize it that much. David is showing off a Flooded Strand. One thing I didn't call out in his deck list photo, by the way, is that he does have some proxies. His Flooded Strands and his Mox Diamonds are both proxied and have alternate art, so that may trip me up in the future, but hopefully I will catch it. And yeah, let's see if we can get a solid 6 here from Mose. Like, David has not the fastest start. He's got a Meddling Mage, little on the land heavy side. All right, and Mose has found a good 6. We are off. And Mose is going to take the play, just lead off with a Forest. So not a quick start for either player. I'll lead off with a Flood Strand and pass. David did just pick up a Wild Mongrel, so at least has a turn 2 that's not a blind Meddling Mage. And Mose getting a very nice turn 2 with his Sylvan Library. And getting a Mishra's Factory down too to potentially swing in next turn. Alright, so we're going to shortcut a little bit here. Gonna play out a brush land and is going to fetch for I'm assuming a blue source. I'm assuming he's grabbing an island. No, interesting, he's grabbing a plains. Okay. Is going to take a point though off of the fetch, and of course tapping for the green, so he is at 18. And Mose deciding if he's taking any extra damage from the zone library. No, just taking 1. I'll go ahead and crack it. One nice thing with those fetch lands and Sylvan Library is if you don't like the extra cards, you can always just shuffle them away with the fetches. And having so many fetches in Terravore makes a lot of sense, not only to get extra lands in the graveyard, but with Sylvan Library is a nice little extra bonus for sure. Now, David has a blocker down that can get as large as it needs to block the Mishra's Factory, so that's not going to be the play here. But instead, we're going to do some land destruction. Winter's Grasping the Brushland. Interesting. So David just drew a swords. There is an empty board though, and do we just get in for 2? I think that is the plan. I was going to take 2. Are we discarding anything else? I mean, maybe the deep analysis does better in the grave. No, we're just going to main phase 2, playing on Meddling Mage. Meddling Mage, naming. We're not entirely sure. Well, if there's something good in Moses' hand, I'm sure it was named. That's just the way Meddling Mage goes. I have to imagine that either Oath or Terravore was named. And at this point, probably Terravore. No, Oath was named. Okay. Thank you, David. That does help. Oath was named. Interesting on shutting off the enabler versus the actual threat, though. I would love to know the reasoning there. Alright. We got Treetop Village coming down. Some more land destruction. Taking him off of blue. Still leaving white up for... Ooh, is that a second swords he drew? Interesting. Oh, wait. I know 100% why you would name Oath and not Terravore. You can still play Oath to get Terravore because it doesn't cast for the Meddling Mage. That makes sense. So having now 2 swords in hand, it makes perfect sense to name the Oath. Ooh, and doing his deep analysis, getting his 3rd swords, and really looking good here. A little land light, thanks to all the land destruction, but overall, it's going to be able to deal with any Terravore threat that hits the battlefield. And even have an answer for those man lands as well, if they should pop up. Okay, looks like he has a gemstone in hand, so he could make a land drop here if he wanted. Nope, we're just gonna go to combat and swing. Bose is down at 8. He could, in theory, kill him if no blocks happen. So forcing a block here at the very least on the Wild Mongrel. Dropping to 7. Getting a mountain. Interesting. Does Mose have a Pyroclasm in hand? We don't have a really good view on his hand. Okay, gonna tap 2. 3 more. Before blocks. Trying to decide if a swords is going to happen here. Swords will hit the treehouse. And is another sword going to hit the factory? It looks like yes. Okay, so Mo's correctly buffing it. That is still exile though, right? It should be. Interesting. Okay, we got the Tireless Tribe down. Now this is late enough in the game where David does not have a ton of cards in hand, so doesn't necessarily have lethal damage with just that, but having a bunch of other creatures down does make a difference. Mo's deciding here with the Sylvan Library. He could take 8. Drop to 1. Instead, it looks like just opting for 1. I tap 3, and are we going to see Terravore? No, Thermal Karst. Very interesting. I believe... not quite game. But David's gonna swing in with everything. Okay, yeah, there's gonna be game. That has enough damage. I always forget with the Tireless Tribe that it is in fact a 1-1, not an 0-1. So yes, that was exactly 9 damage, and we are in game number 2 now. That was a bit faster than I was expecting for that game to end. Obviously, losing your 2 manlands was a bit of a crushing blow for Mo's, and not seeing any of the Pyroclasms, but you have to imagine the other 2 Pyroclasms are coming in from the sideboard. Not sure what else would be making it in, but it looks like he does have a faster start. I do see a Mox Diamond in Moses' hand. On David's side, see a Sunscape Familiar, some lands. And we're just going to start off with a tap land, Forgotten Cave, and pass. Alright, same as before, Flooded Strand. Again, a proxy. And again, proxies are 100% allowed in our format. Ooh, pitching a Wasteland. And we're going to get some elephants. These are definitely a bit fancier proxies than some people use. Even black and white printouts are okay as long as you can read them. That's all we care about. And using an Ice Age, I believe it's an Ice Age Mammoth, as his 3/3 elephant token. Very cool. Different sleeve as well, just to make it super clear. Alright, we're going to fetch. Do a little bit of shortcut in here. And a Sunscape Familiar comes down. Alright, so taking 2, or sorry, just 1 off the fetch. I guess he's going to be getting a Plains. Yes, okay. And then, moving to Moses' turn, we are swinging in. Not going to block, just take the damage. And then, how about 1 more elephant? And back to David's turn. Okay, drawing a Deep Analysis. Does have a couple of Meddling Mages. Does he have a blue source, though? Is that another Flooded Strand? It is. Okay, so he can go get a blue source that way. He also has I think a Gemstone Mine. Okay, we're just gonna crack and fetch it. Hard casting a Deep Analysis. And we're just going to shortcut to Moses' turn while David draws his cards. I do appreciate the players trying to go fast. I think David knows that this can be a very grindy matchup if the board state does stall out and both players' threats are answered, which are easy to do. Alright, draws a Mox. It was maybe not the best idea, I guess, to shortcut, because he could have played out the Mox, pitched a land, and had a Swords up, potentially. So maybe not the best shortcut there, but in the interest of time, I guess it makes sense. He is going to be taking 6, though, so this does put him down to 9. So Mose does have lethal on board, if he has a way to deal with the Sunscape Familiar. Alright, so that Mox does come down, pitching a land. And it doesn't look like David has a Swords. He has a couple of Meddling Mages. And that intuition, I think that's what's gonna happen. Alright, he's gonna go find a couple of flashback cards. Or quiet speculation, not intuition. Alright, we're gonna get a worm. We get 2 worms, or... Okay, he did put in some additional flashback cards, it looks like. That Prismatic Strands, I think, was in the main. The Ray Revelation, there might have been one in the main, but he probably brought in another one specifically for Oath, and also just as a way to deal with Mox Diamonds and Mishra's Factories. But no, instead we're going to be putting the Prismatic Strands, which is turned on currently with this Sunscape Familiar. You can prevent green damage, or damage from one green source. I'd have to re-look up that card, but I'm thinking it's from a specific color, right? So currently blanking all green damage, which is very good. Alright, gonna play out a Gemstone Mine. I think you just need to put some bodies on the board. Like a giant worm token. There you go, 6/6 worm. And his own Sylvan Library. It was so good for Mo's last game. Let's see it this game. Okay, so Mo's not... Let's see, what does he have? He has a Wasteland. And I think that's 2 Terravores in hand, which is not ideal. But we are going to Wasteland, or play out the Wasteland, and swing in for what could be a lethal attack, if no blocks happened. Of course, blocks will happen, and I think Moses is just trying to force that Prismatic out of the graveyard. Get it taken care of now, so he doesn't have to worry about it.
None of them are giant growth.
Also, I guess notably, that getting the Mishra's Factory in the graveyard, it's not a bad thing to getting that Terravore out. David has 3 lands right now, and Mose has just 1. So a Terravore, if that block actually happened the way he was hoping it would make it a 5/5. But instead, he's just going to bounce off the Sunscape Familiar. He's going to lose one of his elephants, take 6, and that Terravore hits the battlefield and is currently just a 4/4. Notably, the prismatic strand did not get used. Ooh, that is a sword. That is 2 swords. Can't take both, but you can at least put them both on top, which is what's going to happen. Now, David is in a bit of a corner here. He needs to start applying pressure. So maybe there's a world where he swings in with this token and then swords his own worm. I don't think that's the right call, but he could do it to gain 6 life. No, and Moses is going to take 6. Not too worried about that. Alright. Play another land and Anakar Waste. And let's flash back another worm. I think realizing that the Sunscape Familiar makes it a little cheaper. One of the reasons why that card is so good in this Bant deck is it does discount a lot of things. Alright, so we got another 6/6 on the board. And David, I think, wondering if he just swords is the Terravore here. Meddling Mage probably naming Oath at this point again. Now having
I'm gonna name
the greater number of creatures on the battlefield,
and then I will.
I think makes the most sense.
Yeah, thanks.
Or did he name herd migration? Preventing that flashback. I think that may be what he did with Mo's pointing at it. I guess it does a flashback cast count as a cast? I'm assuming yes. Yes, it is. I know. That's a stupid question. Yes, it is. Okay, so he must have named Call the Herd. Or, sorry, not Herd Migration, Call the Herd. I'm getting my cards mixed up, guys. As you know, card names are not always my forte. But at least I can tell you what it does most of the time. Premodern is a big format, and while we do have a lot of staples, there's a lot of good decks. Okay, David's in the tank here. I think maybe he's still trying to decide what to name. No, we already passed to Mo's. Mo's untapped. So is David holding priority, or is Mo's just considering his actions? So Mo's can get that Terravore up to a 6/6 with the Wasteland. So at the very least it could trade. Okay, yeah, so he's just thinking through his attacks here. Just gonna swing in with 2 of them. Leave up 1 blocker. And David thinking if he wants to sack his Sunscape, he does have to block both. Either one is lethal. And potentially, depending on Moses' hand, if he has a few cycle lands, that Terravore could be lethal even through a block. But of course, David does have that swords in hand, so he is not losing this turn. Most likely. In fact, it is a little odd that Mose didn't swing in with both elephants actually to force even more unprofitable blocks for David. Get rid of probably the meddling mage as well. Okay, so blocking like that before damage, gonna swords. Do you have any responses?
Sacrifice Wasteland, targeting.
Yes, we are gonna activate the Wasteland. Go ahead and hit that brushland, effectively getting David off of green. Only having 1 last tap with that mine.
Second main phase.
And Mo's back up to a healthy 20, but definitely down on the board state. But there is another Terravore, which is another 6/6. So he did in fact have 2 in hand. Okay, we got a Sylvan Library trigger. You're gonna get that second swords that you left on top. It looks like 2 other lands, so easily the correct card to pull. And now you have 2 6/6s. And Mose doesn't have much, so we are going to be swordsing that Terravore. Go up to 26. And now is when the beatdowns start coming. Swing for 12. And a second meddling mage coming down. Aiming maybe Oath this time? Or maybe just naming Terravore. Probably naming Oath. I think that would be the smart call. You've dealt with 2 of the Terravores. No Oaths have shown up. And you are ahead on board right now. So I imagine that second meddling mage is naming Oath. Mo's here in the tank. There are 3 blockers on the battlefield right now, but a Pyroclasm would win the game, I'm pretty sure. Sunscape Familiar only has 2 toughness, right? No, it does have 3. Okay, so it would survive. So you would not be winning the game this turn. But at the very least, you would clear the board for everything except for those worms. And free up the ability to make another elephant token as well. Potentially this turn if you had an extra land, but he does not have a Pyroclasm, it looks like. Perhaps, maybe he took him out. I was under the impression that Sunscape was an 0-2, which would definitely have aided my decision to leave it in. But at an 0-3, you're really only hitting, I guess, meddling mages, so probably Mo's took him out, if I had to guess. So that is not going to be an out for him or a line for him. He can still animate his factory and at least block with one of the mages. Get 2 in. Nope, we're just going to be swinging for 3. Alright, so I imagine the Sunscape just dies here. Or do you double block and let Mo's decide which meddling mage stays? Very interesting.
Alright, I'm gonna double block and go for
Gonna take the
And still not sure what Mo's has in hand.
Call the Herd guy is gonna take 2, and the other guy is gonna take 1. Is this the same?
and you pass it.
Okay, yeah, the Sunscape. Oh no, we're actually just gonna be flashing back the strands here. I did forget about that. This game has been a bit of an attrition match. Alright, so Terravore go.
I think it's still 6, right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
And has his own 6/6.
Swing library. 1, 2. I will take 1.
So I think, yes, okay. So the reason why the elephant left, they didn't really show it, but I'm guessing this is what happened. Both meddling mages blocked the elephant token. He flashed back the strings to prevent green from doing any damage. So the meddling mages were able to kill it and were able to stay on the battlefield. 99% sure that's what happened. But now David does not have that safety net and is looking at a very large Terravore and is technically able to get lethal through this turn. But there are 2 factories. So blocks can and will happen.
I have no shit. So I'm just gonna pause it.
And David would be dead on the crackback if he did go for a full send.
I heard a judge call. Did someone call a judge?
Okay, looks like we're getting a... Oh, maybe they're looking at pausing the time. Not sure what was going on there. I think there might have been a judge call on another table. Important note, these are the 2 main tournament organizers for Portland Paper. They set up the monthly tournaments every time. So if there's a judge call, they usually default to one of these guys. So hats off to them for both playing and having to field the judge calls and running the event as well. Really appreciate you guys doing that. They also handle all of the tournament prizing and organization of that as well, which is pretty awesome. I don't know if I mentioned it recently, but a large chunk of the entry fee always goes to a charity of the winner's choice, which is super rad. And then the rest is used for the prize cards. We don't really do prize money. It's all just cool cards and altars and that kind of stuff. And then, of course, getting to choose your charity of choice. So I think David just passed. Not swinging in. Gonna wait for a better card off the top next turn. Hoping that Sylvan Library can find an answer a little faster. And now Moses is in the very tricky situation of just not having a good attack at all. I'm not sure what's in his hand. Again, a Pyroclasm, if he saw one, would be very good. Alright, does have a fetch. Able to get that Terravore a little bit bigger, so a straight trade with a worm looking less likely. Alright, we're gonna play out the library. And just gonna pass. Gonna take that library and hopefully find some way to get out of this. Ooh, David seeing 3 lands. Unfortunately not what you want to see. And is playing them out. Oh, naturalized, that's what was in his hand. Okay. Very good draw for David, and found the perfect target for that. Perhaps waiting for one of those Mishra's Factories to be animated, but hitting a library I think is even better at this point. And honestly, I think David not swinging in that first turn he passed with the 2 worms when they could theoretically trade was maybe the wrong call. Maybe he was holding out just in case Mose did have a cycling land. I'm actually not 100% sure how many cycling lands Mose has in his main deck. Probably only 2 or 3, but could be a blowout. And Mose not getting his library trigger, only got to look at 1 card off the top. And what was it? He looked at it for a second, and it's not going to be enough to turn the tide, so he's going to pass. Oh no, is that 3 City of Brasses? David, unfortunately, getting flooded here, and I think is at the point where it is not worth playing out any more lands. Having those discards to potentially a Wild Mongrel could prove way more beneficial. Alright, we do have some land destruction hitting the field. Interesting, taking down the Gemstone Mine. I mean, yes, it is a free mana of any color. And I mean, ooh, what is that? Is that a sideboard card? I'm not actually... Oh, it's a Ray Revelation. Okay. So, David drawing an answer for an animated Mishra's Factory at the very least. Which might be enough to swing things in his favor. But that Terravore is not going to get any smaller. And really just holding on for, I think, a Swords. This is only real out at this point. Ooh, we got Sphere Resistance. Everything's a little more expensive, but there's enough lands on the battlefield that I don't think it matters too much. Hey, there's Living Wish. What do we get with that? Maybe get to see a little bit of David's sideboard here, or his wish targets. He's going to take a peek. A little off camera. So Living Wish, if I can remember correctly, gets you a creature or a land. And he is actually going to Living Wish. Made it a little cheaper, thanks to the Sunscape Familiar. Ooh, and do you grab the Drake? No, you grab Wonder. Oh no. But do you have a discard outlet? Not currently. And is he just hard casting the Wonder? I think he is. Well, it is a flyer. It can end the game by itself. It also is a good jump blocker to get your flying worms into gear. Alright, that is a second Sylvan Library. And little does Mose know that all David can find off of the, oh my god, off of his library is lands. Alright, so we're gonna bounce that city. And blow up that second Sylvan Library and get in for 2? Wonder's a 2/2, right? The amount of times I've actually attacked with Wonder when it's not been in my graveyard, I can probably count on a single hand. I think it's a 2/2. So it'll end the game slowly, but it will end the game. Alright, and that is a Wild Mongrel as well. So unfortunately, if David had just waited an extra turn, that Wonder could have been in the graveyard. Alright, but now getting a fair amount of threats. Ooh, and that's a second Terravore hitting the battlefield, and that is very nasty. That putting Mose in a bit of a better situation here. Having 2 7/7s, potentially 8/8s. With David down to just 3. Oh, there's a second Wild Mongrel. Opting for a 2/2 instead of an extra card discard to buff one of them 1/1. Doing a little bit of math. And deciding if he even can swing in with his Wonder here.
I'm gonna pass to you.
And nope, it's just gonna pass. So does Mose have it here? He can make them 8/8s. I don't think he does. I don't think there's enough yet to trample over. He could definitely clear out a lot of his opponent's board, but then he would not have anything himself. And this is just a real stalemate and a third Sylvan Library, and David can't believe that he's gonna have to blow up a third one of these, but he does. And we go to his Sylvan Library trigger, and finally is finding action off of his library. Just gonna get in for 2. Takes Mose down to 8. And feeling a little more comfortable now swinging back in with a Wonder. I think he could have last turn as well. And we'll see if that one turn makes a difference. I'm not entirely sure what that other card is in David's hand. Is that another layer? Not entirely sure. And now Mose going in the tank, and both players really recognizing how much this game is on a razor's edge. Someone swings in a little too greedily or tries to go for too much of an attack, and that could be game over on the crackback. And Mose, I think, really just looking for another threat at this point. Another manland would help. Treetop Village especially would be very good. And, I mean, even better would be... Well, actually, no, sorry. Those are his only other 2 Terravores. So he's played out all of his deck's namesake threats, 2 of which have been dealt with. So really needing manlands or enough land destruction to get these Terravores over the line. Oath, of course, Oath of Druids, notoriously good at filling your own graveyard, which is one of the reasons why it works so well with Terravore, being able to get massive creatures as early as turn 3. Sometimes earlier, if you have a really good hand with the Mox. But now that all the Oath targets are gone, Bose would end up just milling himself. Which is not exactly the best idea. And not really seeing much in his hand either. There's another sphere. It's just gonna pass. Not having a good way to deal with Wonder. Okay. Just gonna get in for 2 and pass. Mose, you're on a 3-turn clock. What can you do with it? Okay, I think David is just drawing lands again. How about a 4th library? Will a 4th library stick around? And one of those meddling mages probably should have named library at this point, because oh boy, has it definitely been a player. David dealing with 3 times. Nope, opting not to cast it. They're just gonna pass. I guess he just wanted to show, look what I drew, yet again. Interesting that he did not cast it. And David, I think, almost swinging in. Is he gonna swing in? Oh, he's gotta have something good in hand. In theory, right? I thought all he had was lands. Does he have something else? No, we're just gonna say that's game, and that is actually game. That is 6 damage unblocked. And oh, Mose did in fact keep the Pyroclasm in, which would have been huge. At the very least, getting a few cards out of David's hand for that crackback attack. And we have finished. That is actually 2 games going to David. Way to take it down. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. This is round 5 of 7. So after this one, I believe we cut to top 4. And yeah, if you've already liked and subscribed and shared this with everyone who likes Magic and done everything you can to promote the channel, and you want to support more, if you like the content I've been making and want to help me with stuff like gear upgrades, the best way to do that is through Patreon. There is a link in the video description below. Right now we're just treating it as a bit of a tip jar if you like what we do. Eventually I'll do more things with it, but for now that's what it is. So thank you for taking a look and have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time.